Right, what is going on in America in the ever-captivating drama of what Trump said next? I love it. Right, joining us now is Adam Coleman, columnist at The New York Post. Adam, I love it when you come on the programme. How are you today, my darling?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me back on.
Great. Is it not the crack of dawn where you are?
It's not too bad. It's was almost 8 o'clock.
Yeah, look at you. I barely function at that time in the morning. I just sort of like grunt and groan and look a bit like a scarecrow. So you look beautiful, can I just say? Well done. Right, let's talk about what is going on. First of all, let's start with Ukraine. I mean, get this. Ursula von der Leyen, I don't know if as an American you're that familiar with her, of the sort of immovable Barnett. I am, because I was in the European Parliament with her as the European Commission President, and I don't have many kind words to say about her. And here she is saying Trump needs the support of the EU to end the war in Ukraine. I think, madam, it's probably the other way around, isn't it? But good to see that Donald Trump has essentially said, get your act together, Europe, and at least they're putting on the pantomime of getting their act together, which involved a summit yesterday that lasted hours on end, and they all came out having agreed nothing. Going brilliantly, isn't it?
Yeah, it sounds like, it's very interesting watching the EU react to Donald Trump, and instead of them thinking that Donald Trump is going to react to them. It's very clear that Donald Trump is leading the discussion. The EU seems to not have a clear answer as to how they want to try and move forward. And I think it's because, and I think this is not something that's new, the world leans on America to pay for everything, to start everything, and to be a part of everything. And Donald Trump is saying, okay, then we want out of this war. We want the war to end. And the EU seems to not be willing to at least let him lead the charge. So if they think that they're going to, and I think it sounds like after Zelensky left the White House, he immediately ran over to the EU and, was trying to, or actually ran over to your country, was trying to get some money to fund the war some more. But I think that's a plan that's going to fall short because I don't think anybody really wants to do that for a long term. Now he's coming back to Trump saying that he wants peace. Right. So something clearly happened in a matter of a few days. So I think the driving seat, Trump is in the driving seat when it comes to ending this war. I mean,
Donald Trump hasn't just caught the EU with their pants down. He's essentially pulled their pants down, because what's been clear to us in Europe who know the EU and how it functions from the beginning of all of this is Putin invaded Ukraine. The UK said, because we're not in the EU anymore, we're going to get on, we're going to give arms, this is terrible, no one can just invade another country in Europe, that must not happen, which I totally concur with. Then the EU were like, well, we can't apply sanctions, you see, because our economy is really closely tied to Putin's. Oh, it's going to be a bit difficult cutting off those gas supplies because we've closed down our nuclear power stations and we kind of need it. Oh, we don't want our weapons going over to Ukraine because if they do, you might provoke him and he's a little bit scary. And so the EU kind of did the best part of absolutely naff all and said, America, can you help? And my impression is most Americans go, where's Ukraine? What are we paying for? And Donald Trump's come around and said, like, this has got to end now. The difficulty is, of course, is the EU going, right, yes, we're going to stand to attention, we're going to sort this out. And they still can't blimmin' do it. So where do we go from here? We have now a meeting coming up in Saudi Arabia. I don't know what old Crown Prince What's-His-Chops is going to say to Zelensky. Who knows? But after that meeting, there is going to be a coming together of the Ukrainian team and the American team. What do you predict might come out of that?
I mean, I don't know specifically about this particular meeting, what will come out of it, but I think it's inevitable that the war is going to come to an end. Without money, without resources, there is no war to fight. And you'd be a fool to try and say, well, we're just going to do it ourselves, because clearly you can't, and you wouldn't be able to go as far as you have without outside money, without outside resources. So whether Zelensky wants this war to continue on or not, he's going to have this war come to an end. Trump hasn't shifted. He wants peace. He wants to bring both parties to the table. He wants it to stop. So I don't know what the resistance is initially coming from Zelensky's side, that he doesn't want the war to end.
I do know. I do know.
Okay.
So let me sort of make it sort of simple in terms of where Europeans are at in all of this, because everything you say I totally agree with. But Europeans are kind of going, right, we keep hearing that Zelensky's got to do this, Zelensky's got to do that, Zelensky's wrong to say this, Zelensky shouldn't have said that. Zelensky was the one who got invaded. He was just minding his own business, badly running his own country, when Putin marches in with tanks, and we're like, blimey, we've seen this before in Europe. In fact, back in the day, under the Soviet Union, Russia marched into a lot of places with a lot of tanks and just took control of them. And we don't want it to happen again. So as much as we might criticise Europe for being rubbish in preventing that from happening, which clearly they have been, at the same time, a lot of Europeans are going, we're hearing a lot of what Trump has to say about Zelensky. Putin seems to have gotten away with it all, though, and that ain't good.
Well, and listen, I'm just taking Trump's word for it, but Trump has indicated that the Russian camp is open to ceasefire and peace. So that's why we're not really talking about it. It's because the issue doesn't seem to be coming from the Russian side wanting it to end. It seems to be coming from the Ukrainian side, and it's not to say that there's no reason why. I can understand some of his complaints when he was in the Oval Office, saying, listen, we had ceasefires before, what are our guarantees? And that's a whole different other story. So I can at least give him that a little bit of grace.
Yeah, it's the worry here, though, that, of course, Putin wants this war to end. He's not winning it. It's cost him 1 million lives, and it's, costing him millions of rubles as well. He's not winning it. He can't win it. It's a war of attrition, so he kind of needs to, get off the roller coaster now. But he probably thinks he's going to get off the roller coaster with a whole load of land that he didn't have before, with a whole load of gas fields, with coastal sites, which means he can control the Black Sea along with his mates in Iran and, who control the Red Sea. It's not the concern here that Putin is not going to be punished for what he did, and he's a bad man.
Yeah, I can understand that. But at the same time, I think we have to worry about one point then the next point. They have to come to the table to negotiate. And whether some sort of negotiation is as far as some sort of punishment because of what's going on, but there has to be some sort of willingness to compromise. Unfortunately, there's never going to be some sort of fairness when it comes to war and ending a war. Every side, because there's no clear winner as of right now, every side feels like they've been slighted and that they deserve something. When it comes to a compromise, that means both parties lose something.
But what is it that Putin's losing? Because he hasn't really been slighted. He's only gaining in this position. He went into a country, said, I want all of this land, has seized X amount of it, and is probably, as a result of these negotiations, going to walk away with a substantial chunk of what he essentially illegally seized by storming into another country and saying, I want this. I mean, that's the big worry here, that everyone does seem to lose other than Russia.
Well, I think this is where the negotiations come into play, and that's why the United States is trying to get involved. Maybe there is, and listen, I'm not an expert on this particular topic, and there are lots of things that are going to happen as far as the negotiations go. But there could be some sort of punishment. There could be some sort of sanction. We don't know this 100%, but I understand the fear behind it being, well, we just stop shooting each other and let's just go home and call it a day. I think there's going to be some more significant measures that are going to take place.
Let's talk now about the trade tariffs, because Donald Trump, he said, what is it? It's country, family, God, tariffs. And he has said it's his favourite word, and he has banged it around a lot, hasn't he? And actually, it seems to relative success when he's threatened tariffs against Mexico and Canada. They've jumped to attention, much like the Europeans are now doing over defence spending, and sort of gone, OK, America's really peeved with us because we're not doing what we should be doing. But it seems now that he's rowing back on that a little bit. Why is he doing that? Is that because it would really negatively affect the American economy, Wall Street stocks? Is this because actually he's managed to extract, as a result of the threat of tariffs, what he needed from Mexico and Canada?
So I think the thing that's very interesting when it comes to Trump, and what a lot of people misunderstand about Trump, is that Trump has always been about negotiating, whereas in the past, when we have politicians, whatever they say is what it is actually going to be. So if they talk about something, that's actually what they want to do. And so he's written a book about it. He's talked about it multiple times. He goes for the big ask. The big ask is, we're going to hit you with massive tariffs. That's the big ask. But where it's going to come is somewhere in the middle. And somewhere in the middle is actually what he wants. So he may say, oh, we're going to tariff you 100% to what we're doing. But what he's actually wanting is actually maybe 50% of what he was asking for in the first place. And that's a hell of a lot more than where we were at before. So I think Trump is always going to use every tactic to negotiate, get someone's attention, bring them to the table so they'll get upset because they're not used to negotiating. They're used to dictating and just saying, America, do this, and we just do it. And we don't care about our own resources or about our economy as long as the bureaucrats and the certain politicians in our country get a little bit of back pay on the, some USAID money going to their pockets. But now we have someone who is saying, no, if you're going to tariff us 100% on this, then we're going to tariff you 100% on this. We want fairness when it comes to our economies. And right now, in many sectors, it seems to be lopsided.
Adam, it's always great catching up with you. I think one thing is true when it comes to Trump. He's pretty plain speaking. He said, I'm going to put America first, and he is. So I always think just take the man at his word. Right, Adam Coleman there, columnist at the New York Post.